But I think our job is more than that. Our job is to really help prepare you for what you will become. And in my mind, you will become cognitive. It will be in your applications, your processes, and you'll become a cognitive enterprise. And it will separate the winners and the losers. And that's why, I hope that's why 20,000 people are really here. It is these two other pillars that stand on this really strong enterprise strength cloud. Data first as an architecture and cognitive at the core that will help future-proof you, really future-proof you as you move forward. So each one. So what do I mean by data first? Well, those of you that have known me for a long time, I think I was counting the years. For 6 years, I've been saying data is the world's next natural resource. Meaning the value that you're going to get from all this data, the value's in extracting it and getting the insights out of it. And with those, you're going to change how you make every decision that you make. So we have a very different view than others do on this. We think the value's insights. There are others who think the value of all this data is to find it and distribute it. In many ways, it commoditizes your data. Some people call it democratizing your data. That's not what we believe we're here for. We think we're here to help you get a competitive advantage, to take that data, and more importantly, with an architecture that is data first, we can guarantee you that your insights are your insights. They are not shared with someone else. They're not training one big knowledge graph for someone else. It's yours. And we do that in two ways. So data first has two big tenets to it. One is data diversity. That's kind of obvious. Because with cognitive, boy, the value goes skyrocketing the more you put in there. And so with that, you've got the value that you have to have public data, private, and licensed data, and the ability to mix all that together, all forms. That makes sense, data diversity. But the other thing we uniquely do is data control. Because I don't believe those of you that have IP that's valuable, data that's valuable, you're not going to put it out in the wild. So we give you controlled access to your data, data locality, you know where it is, who's using it, and what for, and data isolation, so it's not commingled. So I wanted to kick it off, maybe just refresh, because you might agree with me on what's driving the era, then talk kind of a fire list of, I was just talking before this, I walked out here about the clients and what they're doing, many of you and others, but just to give you a feel for how cognitive is real already, and what people are doing, and then if I can give you my own personal opinion about how your role changes. And it is what I expect of my CIO as well in my company. So what would set your business apart? And sometimes I think of this as a shopping list about even where to get started. So what would, if I as a business really embed cognitive as a silver thread in everything I do, what might I do different as a company? Or what would be the outcome of it? You'd have deeper human engagement with your customers. You may not know it, Geico is using Watson behind the scenes. You'd be able to scale expertise. I don't care if it's a doctor, a call center, whatever it is, the average would equal the best. You could put cognition in a product or a service. SoftBank makes a robot called Pepper. That's Watson in Pepper's brain. You could run cognitive processes. I'll talk some about what IBM does inside. We have one called Find Your Fit, and it's about cognition to help you find the right career. Or any time or way you do discovery in a company. We're going to put out a new Watson app coming, I can't remember the exact date, coming soon. It's called the Company Analyzer. It analyzes any company with all the information out there. I mean, all of us have companies as customers, investments, whatever we do. So those are just the words I was, human engagement, scaling expertise, changing, putting cognition in a product or a service, actually changing the process and doing discovery. Those are all little windows to open to start. And I think people have a vision, and it's almost, I think it's symbolic of what is IBM's hallmark, which is about continuously reinventing itself to what is the next most higher value thing. And so if you just look at the number across the top, it isn't as if it's still 100 billion of the same things anymore. And to me, this is really important. And that's why I think most people, hardware is a very important thing, very important. And what we've done is focus on the kind of hardware, which, by the way, runs all those banks and airlines and everything, that is the most secure, the highest throughput, most reliable, et cetera. But it is now less than 10%. And in fact, the company has morphed over this time, 30% software, services. And if you ask me, well, what is IBM today? I would tell you, and this is an important word, it's an enterprise solutions company. Because there are consumer companies out there, and I think it's important to know what you are. We are an enterprise company that sells to enterprises, and they serve the consumer.
Okay. So you do have 431,000 employees. That's a lot of employees to be responsible for. One of your competitors, HP, decided they were going to hive off one of their businesses. Would you consider, splitting off part of the company because it's just so big, or that isn't something you would consider?
You know what? It isn't about size. It's about the value you provide, right? And again, back to this thought, this one notion, which I think in many ways is underappreciated. The idea that you constantly move your portfolio to higher value. So, you and I were talking earlier. I think one of the things, I've worked for some great people in this company, and one of the things they taught me was you always steward for the long term. And if you steward for the long term, that means that you adjust the portfolio constantly. And so I would say we take care of any portfolio, we do it on a continuous basis. And so we would, over the last decade, we've added 150 companies. And over my tenure, actually even just this year, I will have divested of $7 billion of revenue for IBM that lost $500 million. So it's that we constantly prune and change that portfolio on our own, and I think that that's our job as stewarding the company and returning high value to our shareholders.
Let's talk about Watson. Why did you name it Watson, not Gerstner?
It is built on decades of technology.
So for those who may not know, Watson is was a computer that went on Jeopardy, I guess, and beat whoever the best Jeopardy person was, right? But how did you take that computer that beat somebody on Jeopardy and make it into a whole business? And what does Watson actually do?
This is to me one of the most important things. Maybe in the morning I'll talk about that. I want to back up a second. What we did with Watson in 2011, it's, by the way, a cloud service, by the way, now, that was just very symbolic. What it actually is, it's the very first, really, instantiation of something the world calls cognitive computing. So if you go back in time, the very first, in the whole era of computing, were machines that just counted things, tabulating, abacuses, and they moved up from there. They counted. Everything you know today is programmable. You must tell it what to do. Somebody's told it what to do. It's programmable. Everything, big, little, doesn't matter. This is the first genre of machines that they learn. And so what Watson actually, Watson, people say, oh, is it a big super search engine? Is it a Q&A? Does it look things up? No, it learns. And so it actually has a learning curve, it has a learning curve. So what does it mean by it learns? It operates like our brain does. It ingests lots of information, which we'll come back and talk about, what it's done in healthcare and in cancer, ingests a lot, and then it learns over time what's right and wrong and makes correlations. So like you and I make decisions, it forms, though, hundreds of thousands of hypotheses at one time, and then it goes and looks for all the data to prove them right or wrong, and statistically over time, the reasoning gets better and worse with the data, and it comes up with answers with percentage of confidence in the evidence of what it believes. We had acquired, and I had helped do the acquisition of PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting into IBM. It was still is the largest professional services acquisition ever done. And when you acquire a professional services firm like KPMG, it's people. So it isn't like you buy parts and they have no choice. They have a choice. And so I remember when I was asked to run it, I can remember saying, I'm like, this is either a really good or a really bad idea, okay? This is either gonna be the beginning or the end. And it was big, but it prepared you to do the next and the next, and now, I mean, I am completely reinventing IBM, not I, a great 400,000 great people for this next era all around AI and the cloud. And so it does, I keep saying to myself, to everyone, my nephews, my nieces, anyone who'll listen to my stories, I'm like, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, because you'll take on more and more risk. And if I said nothing else that anybody cared, is my group awake out here still? Yeah, okay, so I can always count on the home team right there. If you're a solution company, A, you don't do everything by yourself. And B, if you never define yourself as a product, you're always focused on what is the solution you create. So with the partnership with Apple, is one of now 4 what I consider sort of very strategic partnerships that are all around IBM as an enterprise platform for that future I just described. So with Apple, really, if I can kind of boil it down, the view was together we could reimagine how work was done. Most people who, if you have your devices, when it comes to doing serious business in your company, statistics are 60% use it for email and calendaring, 70% are afraid to do things way more sophisticated in real work process because of security. So we knew there was an itch. I'll talk about some of the apps coming out. So the partnership with Apple was to reimagine work. Then we announced a partnership with Twitter, which was really kind of the view that every decision you make, every business decision could be improved at the voice of the consumer. And so we'll be taking all that into business decision making, which is very hard to do just with all that data sitting out there as it is. And then in cloud, 2 partnerships, both SAP and Tencent in China, which, as you know, Tencent is huge in China, and we are the cloud selected partner to take it to small, medium business. So these are all about providing a certain solution of which Apple